Good afternoon. This is David Bourgeois again. I'm back this afternoon. And one thing we would like to do is a lot of people come to the center, most people who come to the center and have land that they want to reforest or do other projects on, it's like a black box. They don't know, who are these people, how are they going to help me, and they have no concept of, what does it mean to do forestry. And we're going to try to use real-life examples. We have here several people. Our best cooperator is the NRCS, Natural Resource Conservation Service. We have Adriana Hamilton, who's been in the, serves Charleston, Berkeley counties, has been here for a couple of years. And then I've invited landowners who graciously come from far away. Monica Graves came all the way from Sellers, South Carolina. And Richard Habersham came all the way from Mount Pleasant, but she has land in Marion County. He has land in Orangeburg County. So I want to show you one thing is the diversity of landowners. Every landowner who comes to us has a different situation. They have different high acreage, low acreage. They're at different stages, but the people we can help the most are people who have harvested cutover land. They have what the NRCS considers a resource concern, and that allows them to allocate money for the projects that we have these folks doing. And on the other side here, we have Mitch Mitchell, came from Beaufort County. He's supposed to be at the Shrimp Festival today, and he graciously drove all the way up. I would be eating shrimp myself, but it was kind of him to come here. And Ronald Richards, who has land in Colleton County and came all the way up from Savannah. So we appreciate all you folks being here today to share your experiences. And first, we'd like to have Adriana talk about her perspective. I'm trying to get perspective of us at the center, how we connect people. People come to us and think, well, we have money. We don't have any money. We connect you with federal dollars and that sort of thing. And there's different roadblocks that people have when they come in here with the terminology and the paperwork. And I'm hoping that by listening to our program today, you at home, and I know there's actually some folks, I talked to a fellow just at the break who said, hey, I had land cut over a couple weeks ago. Perfect time to come to us to help us connect you to NRCS and the funding to replant your land. So first off, we're going to have Adriana talk about her perspective when you come to her, what she needs to know, why she needs to know it, and how she can help you with the programs that they fund. And one more thing I want to mention is I always talk in the forestry lens because that's what I think of, but we have people who come to us like Monica Graves had a farm, and she still has a farm. She has planted trees on part of her farm, but she's also doing NRCS projects in agriculture. So if I go to a landowner, I don't just say, hey, plant your fields to trees. What is the highest, best use of this land? What are your goals? What does your family want to do? And we try to help you in whatever way we can. So with that, Adriana Hamilton.
Thank you, David. To reintroduce myself, my name is Adriana Hamilton. I'm the soil conservationist in the NRCS Service Center right down the street for Charleston and Berkeley County. To give you a brief overview of NRCS, if you were here earlier, our state conservationist Ann English gave a great history lesson on our agency. But to break it down, NRCS is a technical assistance service. So when you have land, you will come to us with issues or hopes and dreams for your farm, and we'll provide technical assistance or show you different technical assistance providers that can help you with your land. And we provide cost share programs, the most popular being CSP, Conservation Stewardship Program, which is a 5-year program, and EQIP, Environmental Quality Incentives Program, which just has practices that you can complete for as long as it's not contingent on 5 years, but it's more for structural practices that you complete and then get a sum of money for that cost share practice. So I brought a bunch of pamphlets today for everyone in the room. One is for EQIP and one is for CSP. And I brought another one for forest land managers. So the first thing that will happen is someone will come into our office and they have a problem or they have land and they're not sure what they want to do with it. From a forestry standpoint, we have forest we have people who know forestry, but we mostly require a forestry management plan from a forester. So how we work with the Center for Heritage Property is that they have foresters on staff and they work directly with you to implement these practices. So the first thing you would do, we'd probably direct you to find a forester, or if you're already with the Center for Heirs, they would be your forester. And they'll go out to your land and recommend practices that you can do on your land or how to best manage your forested land. And they'll create a forestry management plan and bring it to us. And then we can put these practices into place into a plan for you and go from there. But if you aren't working with a forester yet, one of the first things we tell our landowners to do is to contact FSA to get a farm and tract number. That way you can have your land in our system first. It has to be an FSA system first before we can put your application in. And that way you don't have to worry about multiple people being on your farm and tract. It's just for you or your LLC or your business or something like that. And then once all your eligibility is completed with FSA, then the next step would be to come to us and we'll come out and do a site visit. I actually did a site visit yesterday all day long in Courtsville. So if you come to my office, it's most likely going to be me, or we have a new soil conservationist who's in the office, or our district conservationist who couldn't be here today. But it's 3 of us in the office right now. So the face you're seeing currently is who is in the office. So that way you'll know I'm not going to get some random person who just came to talk to you randomly today. I'm the actual one of the people in the office who will come out and meet with you. That's basically our programs. We have many other ones, which I have right with me here, is our Farmer's Guide to Farm Bill programs. I can get more copies of these, but this has a list of all programs that we cover with different agencies. We have Farm Service Agency, FSA, NRCS, which is us, and then Risk Management Agency, RMA, and it's a pretty long list, but that's good because now you have multiple options that can fit your needs best for you. And if it's not forestry related, you don't need a forester, so we can come out and help you with your vegetable farm or implement practices that will help meet resource concerns. And what I mean by resource concerns, they could be soil erosion, wind erosion. Let's say Ian came through and ripped up everything, and now you realize that your yard is flooding. That is a resource concern. And we have practices that you can implement to not entirely solve the problem, but we have funds available to help with your land if you're facing difficulties like that. And I'm here to listen to our other landowners that have worked with us and answer questions.
Okay, so that's a pretty good overview, and something that she mentioned that might not be clear. She said, I'm the person. Well, I didn't mention that every county in South Carolina has their own office that you would go to. So if you're in Berkeley or Charleston County, you would go to one office. If you're in Marion County, you go to another office. If you're in Orangeburg County, you go to another. And sometimes there might be 2 small counties that use one office. But the idea is that there is an office in every county where you would go to. And we at the center, if you have a problem going there, you're not sure, that you'll ask the right questions, we will actually meet you there to help you with this. So to keep the ball rolling here, because Ronald Richards, I don't know that I've worked with him the longest, but I've definitely worked with him the most on the ground. We have actually planted trees together, sprayed together, raked out a pollinator plot together. We visited his several sites multiple times, but I would like to have him come up. He also doesn't have a microphone. Everyone else has the luxury of the microphone. But anyway, I'll have him come up here and talk about his experience. And one question I'm going to ask everybody is, how long did it take you between when you came to the center and when everyone here has gotten trees planted on their land. So it can be done. There's at least 4 people who've done that. One thing that Steve, our forestry director, always says, this is not like ordering a pizza. It takes a while, and I'd like Ronald to come up and talk about his experience of, what were the roadblocks, what was hard, what was easy, and, how did we get through this? So that you at home and you here who have land will know that this can be done, and we want you to try to do it. So with that, Ronald Richards.
Hello, my name is Ronald Richards, and I'm supposed to be at Savannah State Homecoming, but me and Dave worked together so much I decided I better get here. I got started on this journey, I guess, about 2012, and I think they say she's deceased, but you had an attorney named Ms. Hope. She fussed at me all the time because it wasn't clear title. We didn't have clear title, and I hate to say this, but we still don't have it. But what I did, first I found out what an heir really was, and I realized it was the 8 sisters and brothers. It wasn't the children or the people who was doing all the fussing and all. And I got all of them together, and I got the matriarch together, and I got her behind me. And they all just signed over and made me the executive to do whatever needed to be done to preserve the property. Because what we was concerned about was making sure that if somebody died, in which they all this started kind of dying off, that the taxes were paid. And that gentleman right over there, Cordell, I think I met him in the tax office. I had to come up there. And, but what we did, I hear everybody keep, the family disputes. We got a ledger, and everybody signed it. And we got the attorneys, and then we got started. I think I went to Centersville. They were great help, but Hope, she fussed at me all the time, and we're still working on clearing it, but the trees are this high now, and we planted about, 30,000. And like I said, we got started in 2012. I think around 2016 before I got trees in the ground, but it was a process, and it still is, and I go out there now, but I don't know, every 2 months or whatever I can get Dave to come and help me. And I do a lot of the legwork myself. I'll pull my bush hog out there, do whatever is necessary. But it has been rewarding because my grandmother and grandfather, that's what they had, And I didn't think it would be right for the younger generation. Now, their immediate children wanted to keep the property, but that group after them, my age, they was ready to sell. But now that they see that the property is basically sustaining itself and can sustain itself, they're glad we didn't do it. I could talk all day, but that's basically what happened. But the center educated me, but it took me about 3 years. I think his name was Joe Murphy. Well, who was it? Joe Murphy or someone. We would drive there, have meetings, and I'd leave Savannah and go to the meeting. Leave Savannah and go to the meetings, and it's been worth it. That's basically all I have. But we got 30,000 trees in the ground, and like I said, they all taller than me now. Yeah.
I'm going to correct one thing. He misspoke. They harvested, I think, in 2016. He didn't plant till 2020. And he hasn't been there in a couple of months, but the trees that were that big last time he was there are now, they're like 12, 15 feet. His woods are growing really fast and are building value at an incredible rate, thanks to all his perseverance. I don't have any particular order, but since Mitch Mitchell is missing his shrimp, I'm going to invite him to come up next and talk about his experience, and particularly if you have something you can think of that would make this process easier for the landowner, please suggest that, and then we can argue with Adriana, see if it's something she can fix. Mitch Mitchell.
As usual, the first thing I have to do is adjust the mic. Anyway, I'm Mitch Mitchell, and as David and mentioned, I'm from Beaufort, and not only am I missing shrimp, I'm missing our homecoming game at State College, and but this is important, and I wanted to be here because David was always there for my brother and myself, and every time we called, and we called a lot, but he was always there, always answered the phone, always, there was no, although I felt a little ridiculous sometimes, some of the questions I asked, he never made me feel stupid as I was asking the questions. One thing I want to share with you all is, there are no stupid questions, just stupid people who don't ask their stupid questions, right? So don't be like me. Leverage, whoever your NRCS person and FSA person might be. As Dr. Stevens mentioned to me, Dr. Stevens at the Center for Heirs Property mentioned some time ago, usually behind these situations is a family dynamics. And my family was no different. The similar story, great-grandparents had the property during, the Great Migration, farm to factory, Jim Crow era. A lot of us, our family went to New York. My family was no different. Daddy stayed on the farm. Daddy farmed the property. Everything was cool. Then Papa died. Daddy's father died. And with that came the heirs property situation. Fortunately, we realized that before my uncles, while my dad and all of my uncles and aunt was alive, we were able to get that taken care of. But then, I won't go into all that details, but with mom and dad's will, our property ended up back in the heirs property, essentially. And it really caused some deterioration in the family. So our experience with this goes back to 2013. When, as Daddy stopped farming the land, and the land kind of grew up in a lot of nothing trees, but there were quite a few pine trees. Everyone harvested the trees, took the money, then nothing. So when that happened, my brother and I, who since formed an LLC, we talked about putting the land, put it in trees and doing something with it. But that's a whole another chapter we could talk about for a long time. But that didn't happen. So then, it's just neglect. Nothing happened. We're paying taxes. Daddy said to us, and essentially, that era, Daddy said, "You boys, make sure you keep this land." I don't know why he didn't say it to the girls, but he said, "You boys, make sure you keep this land in the Mitchell name," and that was cool. When Dad was about 55 years old, he'd been paying the taxes. He said, "I'm not paying it anymore." He said, "I can pay the taxes on this other land until the cows come home. I don't own it. Someone can come and claim it, get equal shares." He said, "If you boys want to do it, you do it." So we were pretty young. It didn't seem like much money to us, so we kept doing it. And then we got to be close to Daddy's age, and we figured out what he meant. And we said, we're not going to pass this hell on to our children. So we formed the LLC, and we got a good portion of the land in the LLC. And then, so now we have the land in the LLC. Thanks to David, he told us, why isn't this land in agricultural status? I didn't know what agricultural status was. We weren't planting any cotton on it. So he shared with us. We got the property in agricultural status, saved us a bunch of money. And then he says, well, what's next? So, I can't remember exactly how we ended up at the Center for Heirs Property, but one of the best things that happened during that session and talking about a farm plan and all this stuff is that we met David Bourgeois. And that gave us a sense of direction. He shared ideas with us, came out and looked at the farm, and it says, we didn't think, we hadn't even thought about planting trees on it. We thought somehow we could take it back and clear the land and make it crop, I guess farm to market crops like Daddy had planned, beans and corn and cucumber and all that stuff. But it was kind of far gone for that purpose. So fast forward, we got our plan. We met the folks at our FSA office, folks like Miss Janet Player, Brandon was there at the time, Fred Tritopo. These are some of the folks along the way that helped us. Now we've been working with Kenyatta Render, who is Adriana's equivalent for Buford Jasper. So we were able to, so our journey goes back to basically 2013 when we concretely started thinking about doing something with the land other than passing trouble on to our children. So it took us until last year when, well, actually it was, yeah, last year when the property was actually mechanically cleared. And had we waited just a little longer, the trees would have been so big we couldn't even get in there to do it. And some of our relatives who chose not to join us in this effort, that's exactly where they are. And if you come to our property right now, you could just figure out the chaos because we have 4 acres that's cleared and trees on it, which was put there in March, I think it was. We have another plot of 4 acres each. There's nothing on. Those are the family members that says, I don't know about this. There's something fishy about this. I don't think I'm going to join it, right? And then we go beyond that. My brother and I have about 40 acres of land that's in trees. I don't know how many individual trees are there, but I tell you, to see that land being cleared after a long journey, probably from the time I met David, I think it was probably 4 years before we got trees on it. But it started happening in rapid succession. So we got the trees planted. We had to wait for some things to decay. I was concerned that I walk down there, I go like, man, I don't know how anything is going to grow out of here. We got so many branches, but I'd called David just to come down and settle my gut because I was thinking, wow, this is not going to work. It's just going to be another jungle growing up here. But he came down and he said, yeah, this is exactly what you want to see. Things are decaying. There's going to be good nutrients. These trees are going to be, I'm like, okay, we'll see. and sure enough, the trees were planted. And my brother and I, we took pictures and we sent it to our relatives. And all of a sudden, they go like, how can I do that? I said, well, it's kind of, the horses kind of left the barn on this one. But maybe it's not left the barn completely, but it's going to cost them a heck of a lot more than it cost us. And I just want to say, that I think our total funds that we got to support the project was right around $20,000. I think out of pocket we paid about $8. Wrote checks for about $8. I mean, I couldn't imagine this, to be honest with you. I just, going to give me money to help make my land productive. My taxes are going down. One day my children will, about the time my beautiful little grandkids are going to college, maybe they could harvest some of those trees and get some college expenses. But otherwise, they would have the same disharmony in their family that we have. It ruins relationships. It really does. So anyone's welcome to come and see our farm. I'm glad to show it off. Our trees are like that now. I'm waiting for them to be taller than me. But I tell you, in the short, I think it's been about 4 months now. Yeah. Every time I go out there, I can see the difference in those trees. And the last time David came out along with Kenyatta Render from the Jasper FSA office, it seems like all this, weeds were getting taller than the grass. But, David said, oh, these perennial weeds, they'll go away, and next year the trees will be above, they'll shade out those plants, and, you're going to have a beautiful forest here. And, it's just a good feeling. So, I want to publicly, in front of whoever sees this, I want to thank David. I want to thank all the folks who helped us along our way. I mean, Kenyatta Render, Brandon, Ms. Player, who was retired just, I think, earlier this year in the office. Oh, Dr. Stevens, I didn't see sitting over there. So I'm glad I said all good things about her. But yeah, it's just been a wonderful journey for us. And, we're looking at opportunities to bring other family members that, other families in the area have similar situations. We just had the tax sale in Beaufort this past Monday. And I don't know whether any of you have ever been to the tax sale, but it really breaks your heart to see, especially Ears property being sold at the tax sale. And you think about all the hard work that went in from previous generations to get to that land, and not just through neglect, ignorance, and I don't mean ignorance in a bad way, but just not knowing, to see the land go for pennies on the dollar. It's really a sad experience. But you're here, so you're ahead of the game, and hopefully you can head off the disaster. All right, thanks very much.
Thank you very much, Mitch. I'm gonna have to lower this thing again. Yeah, and I get him saying, you know, all I did. They have no idea how much fun I have with this. I can't believe they're paying me to do this. But I mean, to see it go from this rough ground that was a bunch of tangle of vines and sweet gums, and knowing, because I worked in forest industry for a while, that what it's going to look like. And one of the things I always say is gloat when you win, pout when you lose. I think his family is going to come back with their 5-acre, 8-acre blocks that are against his. He's going to be harvesting, doing his first thinning before their land would be merchantable. I think what will likely happen is when they come to cut his trees, they will finally cut those trees and have not a whole lot of value, but at that point, they'll all have one big area to plant, so good for them. Thank you very much. Next, I'd like to bring up totally different. Monica Graves came to us a number of years ago, and her situation is very different. She had farmland. She will explain the background because I didn't know all of that. But anyway, ended up planting part of that in forest and continues to do some farming. And I also wanted to get some people to mention, you know, he alluded to and doesn't remember how bad it was at sometimes where you're afraid this is not working, this is never going to work, what did we get into? Monica had some issues like the planting crew came with their machines. It was going to be machine planted, and the machines were stuck in the ground and couldn't plant. There was just one thing after the next. Oh, and then the poor survival. They had a really wet year after they planted, so some of the trees, it wasn't bedded. They were underwater. We had to come back and interplant, they call it. But the trend developing here is, one, it takes a long time. It does take effort. You have to be willing to go through some stress and some effort. But in the end, all these folks, I believe, are fairly happy with the results of having done that work. So with no further ado, Monica, please, let's hear your story.
Good afternoon, everyone. Like he was saying, that I did have some agricultural land. I'll start from the beginning. So my father died in 2005. So from 2005 to 2015, we had issues with the court system trying to get it transferred into our name and all of that. So from 2005 to 2015, we had those issues, finally got that worked out. So now that we have the land transferred into our name, so that we can actually get, you know, the funding that we need to do or try to figure out what we're going to do with this inheritance. So when we got the inheritance, there was, you know, agriculture. That was something my mom didn't do. Every week, we had a note on our door asking to sell, asking to buy the land. So I was at the time away from home, so she said, I can't do this. Can you please come home and help me? So I said, okay. I give up what I have going on to come home to help her because I didn't want her to, you know, feel like she was in this fight alone. So with that being said, we had the farm land. It wasn't being utilized. So I came up with a management plan. That is one thing that you have to come up with, is a management plan. The Center for Heirs, they actually offer that for free. If you go out to get or to develop that, I think for Ms. Ruth, it's like $400. So you don't want to have to spend unnecessary money when the center has the resources to help you along the way. So with the agriculture, like David was saying, we have 81 acres of land. So 40 some acres we do row crop, 1 or 2 acres we do vegetable plotting, and then 20 some acres we have the timber. So basically, when we actually decided that we're going to do the timber, it took about 3 years to actually get from the application process to actually seeing it manifest in the ground. So it is going to take time because one thing I didn't know was one of the contractors came out and sprayed on a Sunday with a helicopter, and we had no idea that they were going to come. Then we had some hiccups with the application, so we had to actually get a lot of things sorted as far as the NRCS goes, as far as what we needed to submit to get the funding to apply the spraying, because you have to apply the spraying, you have to prep the land, whether if you're transferring your agriculture to forestry, that means that you have to do the maintenance rowing? Yeah, the maintenance rowing, where you have to bed the rows. Is that what I'm saying? So bed the rows so that you'll be able to do the planning if you're going to do a machine plotting, just like how she was saying earlier. So like David was talking about, alluded to, is we said we were going to do the planning by the machinery. So our land in the back was so wet that the tractor got bogged down, so we had to stop operations. So that was another thing, like every time we were trying to progress, it was something that you had to overcome. So we said, okay, we'll scratch that. No more tractors coming in that area. So we had to hire a crew to come and hand plant that. So we hand planted the trees, and then after we hand planted the trees, we said, okay, let's go in and see how it is. So when we actually went to see how it was standing, then it was so wet, even though lawlabies suck up water and it's good for water, because normally that's what lawlabies plants by the water. So it was so underwater that we had to go back and do inner planting, which how they was saying that going back and replacing or trying to integrate where that spot was dead. So it is a lot of things that you have to check out, look at, and just keep going forward. So my thing is, you're gonna have obstacles, you're gonna have things come your way, you're gonna have family drama, but at the same time, do not give up. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Monica. I appreciate that. Yeah, one thing that she brought up that I hadn't thought of is, and this is what, I didn't know this before I came to the center, but when you work with NRCS, your contract, as Adriana said, you have a forester who says you have to do A, B, and C to plant a new forest, and those things can be very different depending on where you're doing that. Well, in her contract, we said you will have to do a broadcast spray, and sometimes it'll say aerial spray by helicopter or whatever, or on ground with a machine. So there are different rates they pay. So if you if the contractor says, oh, I can't get in there on the ground, I can't get a tractor on there, and this is what happened in this case, but I can get a helicopter, he's going to do it. Once he does that, you need to plant that this year, because that chemical treatment is not going to last another year. You can't wait until the land dries down. So she had a machine planting has one rate from the NRCS versus a hand planting has a different rate. So it seems like it'd be no problem to just change these things, but then you have to go back to NRCS and see if they can modify the contract, because otherwise the landowner can own a tremendous amount of money more. And we're going to have one more person, and then maybe Adriana can talk about the intricacies of trying to, why is it hard? Why can't I just change the, aerial to ground or whatever in your contract so it matches what happened instead of what you were asking to do? Anyway, last person who lives the closest, Richard Habersham. Haven't worked with him as long, but he has very quickly applied, gotten funding, and already has trees in the ground. He's got a great bedded site up in Orangeburg County, and I think it's going to do well. Mr. Habersham.
Hey, thank you. Well, my property is a little bit different from these other guys' property. They had their property a long time. I just had mine now about 5 years, but it was Ed's property. The family got in an argument. Brother, 3 sisters. One wanted to use the property, put a house, the other one, they said no, got in an argument, sold it. I came along, got a really good deal on the property. When he got it, the thing was, what we're going to do with the property, what I'm going to do with it. Some plans we had that I got, well, I said we, because I got a partner in this. When I say we, it's two of us in this. We said, well, we want to do some things with it, but we want some trees on it, right? Came to Ed's property and everything, talked to Dave, talked to Steve and everything, told him, went to some of the classes that he had in Walterboro, and they brought some pretty good things. So, well, you want your property to be productive. And where my property is at is in Santee. I live in Mount Pleasant, the property in Santee. We're close to the lake up there, maybe about 5 miles at the max, right from Santee State Park. We said, well, if we plant trees, we can even do a little RV park while the trees are growing. So got with Dave, got with the NRCS, filled out all the paperwork, got everything going. Well, COVID hit. So when COVID hit, it threw us back about a year. When COVID hit, threw us back about a year. And next thing, the contractors took a while to come and bed and cut the property up, kill all the trees and everything. That took a while. When they finally did the bed, then next thing, we had to wait, I think, about 6 months so all the property, so all the dirt and everything can settle, everything settled down. This past, I think, February, they came and planted the trees, which, like Dave said, it went, to me, it took a long time, but they say it went sort of quick from the time we put the application in, COVID and everything else. So it still took about a little better than 2.5 years to do it. If COVID didn't hit, I think we probably would have come back, a little less time. But it's worth it. The only problem I see now that we're supposed to have it sprayed for the weeds. Plants is about that high, the weeds is this high. That dope, fennel, and all this other stuff is growing. But the trees itself, if you look at it, it's still growing. It's there. It looks pretty healthy to me. It's growing, but I think coming in March, they're supposed to come back and spray to kill the weeds so that the plants grow a little bit better. But I think if they had sprayed it better, I think the trees would grow. It would have been a little bit higher, a little taller. Because I didn't realize weed and that the gum trees and things, those things grow real fast. Yeah, once you cut it down, you let it stay. Next thing you look, it's something else. But like I said, our outlook, we want the trees to grow, but that's not the only thing we want to do with this property. Because really, it's an investment, not just for myself. I'm looking at it for my grandkids. I skip over my kids. Yeah, they always tell me that they was here first, but I always tell my grandkids, this is theirs. Matter of fact, they're seeing it before my kids seen it. Taking them out there, a couple of them seen it. But that's the thing is, leaving that legacy, not for myself, but for my kids. And I've seen that in my community where some of the people who bought property back in the 1800s, they didn't, they bought it at an age when that it was more beneficial to their kids and their heirs than themselves. And I'm trying to do the same thing for mine, to leave that legacy to where they'll have that place, they'll have property. If anybody from Mount Pleasant, right now, property is scarce, it's too expensive, they don't have none now, it won't be none, but to leave that for the grandkids that want to stay in South Carolina and stay in the area, in the general area, it'll be there. All right, thank you.
Well, thank you very much. And I want to, do you have any comments that you would make, Adriana, from from what you've heard, things that, see, this is also not just about making it easier for our landowners, but how can our landowners coming to NRCS make it easier for Adriana to help them, you know, with the paperwork or with, you know, having issues with, I have to change, do a modification, what's that about? In other words, most landowners don't think about the amount of effort that goes into, she has to keep up with probably hundreds of different contracts and what's going on in a lot of people's land, and what does that entail, and how can we get her the right information in a timely fashion to help her process?
Okay. Well, the most important word that I've heard tonight was communication. Like David said, the Charleston and Berkeley office has about a little over 100 active contracts. So one thing I like to tell landowners when I do an initial site visit is please bug us as much as possible. Send me emails, call, do whatever you have to do. We're working very hard, and we obviously want to help you as much as possible, but sometimes I'll be on my computer working really hard, and I'll get 5 million emails, and it'll just go right past my mind, and I'll move on to something else. But the most important thing you can do for us is when you come into our office, we'll talk with you, ask you what your goals are for your farm, and first direct you to FSA so you can get your eligibility straightened out. And then once that's straightened out, we'll schedule another site visit to come out and see your property and discuss options and possible resource concerns that you may have on your land. And then after that, when you turn in your application, we'll put it in our system and then get it started from there. It's mostly a case-by-case basis, which is why we like to come out and look ourselves. Like David said, each county has its own office. So if you're in another county, you may have a different DC or soil con that'll come out. But our website has a directory with every county that has all the staff in it. It may need to be updated because I heard we hired a lot of different people, but all great people that are willing to help you and come out and help you with your land. Helping us is mostly just communication, and we do have deadlines that we have to meet, but we try to be as flexible as possible because we want you to get the most out of your land too. I know when we talk to landowners, they're kind of nervous when they hear federal government, which I can understand. Federal government means a whole lot of different branches, but with NRCS, we want to do what's best for your land too, and hopefully, especially with the Center for Heirs, build generational wealth so you can work on your land currently, and it can help your generations to come after that. For how many years your contract is in for, and you can always reapply if you have already been through the program. Did that answer your question, Mr. David?
Yes, thank you very much.
Great.
Are there any questions from the audience here or at home? Ruth?
As we are into this farming and land ownership.
Let's,
As we're in this farming and land ownership, what landowners have to realize of all the state land, we privately own 67% around that. And when we hear that the forestry business is a $21 billion business to the state, we're all invested in it. And once the trees are cut, part of this $21 billion, should replant. So I think it's very important that we understand that we are part of the solution and part of the problem. So as families understand that, for whether they live down here or they live somewhere else, I think once they understand all of that, that there's a possibility you can become part of the solution.
and I want to echo that with something I've been preaching since before I came here about the idea of planting trees and that $21 billion industry in South Carolina is, that's not like money that's going to China or Walmart in Arkansas. When someone sells a crop of trees, they're paying taxes. When that logger is hauling your trees, the truck driver, the mechanic, the fuel, all the taxes paid and all that money is from that industry is coming back into our counties, our communities, going to our schools, our roads. So it's very important. And at the same time, it's a renewable resource. You know, you won't believe it when they give you that huge check for your trees and you say, and I get to keep the land too, and I can do this again. That's crazy. But you're also sequestering carbon. There's some new programs. Some of you have listened to my seminars. We have several landowners who are actually selling carbon sequestration credits where they're getting paid on a one-year contract to not harvest their trees. And I believe that going forward, forests will become more and more important, and it's more and more important to keep that land in your family. You don't know what 10, 20 years from now, things that are not available today, all of a sudden somebody might want to use your land or pay for your land to do something else. So whatever you do not lose that land. And it looks like we have a question from home.
Yes, there's a couple questions on virtual. One, I think goes for NRCS. It says, is there a minimum acreage requirement for use of your services?
I believe you can have as small as half an acre, but I'll have to check on that because I've seen some of our contracts, they have maybe 0.2 acres. So I think that's the smallest I've seen in our contracts, but I think that's it. But I can find out and get back with you.
All right, thank you very much. And then the second question, I believe, what was for you, Dave. What's the average time from seeding to harvesting for a forestry project that I'm in?
We generally tell people about 15 years before you can thin. That's taking out maybe half the trees and getting income from it. And then about 22 to 25 to do a final clear cut. But there are many versions, and the first thing I do when someone comes to me, fills out their interest sheet, is I'll make a soils map and drainage map, and from that we can determine the site productivity. You could do this too. We can show you how to do that. There's a free service on the internet, NRCS Web Soil Survey, where it tells you the productivity. It'll say, if you plant trees, loblolly pines on this ground, they'll be 90 feet after 50 years, and you can figure out what that means, like how fast. And also it depends on what crop you're planting. Some people would plant longleaf pine, and they say that you can harvest pine straw or earn income from pine straw after 8 or 10 years. But every site is different. We tell people generally about 15, but if you're using mass control pollinated and they're planted on a bedded site and it's on some of the soils we have down here in Carlton, Hampton County, whatever, you might be able to do a thinning at age 10 and get $500 or $800 an acre from at that time, and then another thinning later. Sometimes people will do multiple thinnings and carry that rotation out. And there are some new programs, some of these carbon programs, where they want you to leave your trees in the ground. You sign a contract that says, I'm going to leave the trees there for 40 years, and you might be able to do a thinning along the way, but you'll carry the rotation out and actually get money for sequestering carbon. So there's a whole lot of different things. You really need to look at your personal situation, how many acres you have, where it is, what the soils are. There's a whole lot of, you can't just blanket say this is what it is. But generally, 15 years to thin, 25 years to clear cut and start over.
Can you talk about the program that we applied for to actually get the initial planning started, and what is actually the deadline for that, if they wanted to?
So that's one thing that people always wonder about, because they say, well, NRCS's rule is you can't apply for funding to do this project until the last log truck has left, the harvest is complete. Because they used to say, well, I think I'm going to get my trees harvested and I want to apply. They would allocate money to that. The harvest never happened, and then all that money was sitting, and other people in the county could not use it. So they said, no more of that. Last log truck leaves, but they batch them. If you came to me 3 weeks ago and I helped you apply at you went to NRCS and filled out an application, your clear cut was done, you would be applying for money that will be available next summer to do your site preparation, spraying, or whatever things you're doing to prepare the site to plant the following winter. However, if you came to me this week, the deadline was 1st of October. If you came to me this week and the log truck just left yesterday, you would apply, but you're not going to be into the batch for the next year. So it would be 2 years before you could actually do your planting. So it would be the difference, between planting a year from now and planting 2 years from now. So, but that's because of am I correct on that? Was the deadline in October?
October 14th.
Yes. So the deadline for EQIP was October 14th.
Right, this would be, the EQIP funding is for planting trees. Now, if you were doing a conservation stewardship project, I don't think that's till April this year.
Yes, for
Yeah.
fiscal year 2023.
Yeah, so it depends on what you're applying for, but mostly when I talk about that, the greatest way to earn income from your land doing forestry is to replant your land and make it worth 3 to 5 times what it was if you let it grow up naturally. So that's the kind of thing we try to get people into. The others are great programs, but often you're not going to, not that you won't qualify, but you're being on the conservation stewardship programs, like several people here are putting in pollinator plots or duck boxes or people, I think Yvonne Nightcutter talked about hinge cutting, but these different programs in the conservation stewardship funding where they pay you every year for 5 years based on having done this project, that's one that it's separate and you will rank against other people, but after you've already planted a stand successfully, you'll have a much better chance of getting that contract than if you've not already worked with the NRCS and accomplished something, because it's taking your land to the next level. You've already had to have established a forest, that's step one, and now you're going to do a conservation stewardship project on top of that to make your land even better. Any more questions? Well, I'd like to
Hey,
thank...
Dave,
Yeah.
I just did want to emphasize, though, October 14th, that's next Friday for anybody.
I'm sorry, I thought that had just closed, but you're right.
Yeah. So,
Time is flying.
Another week, yeah. If you have resource concerns, now's the time, because you don't want to wait another year to
Yes, if
to get
you
in.
have practices that you're interested in implementing, EQIP's our easiest program because it's not a 5-year commitment like CSP, but yes, the deadline to turning your application is the 14th. And if you need that application, you can go on the website to find your local service center, or you can even look it up and it should be on the NRCS South Carolina website.
So,
And if you need my contact information, I can give you my contact information afterwards.
so this is kind of time critical. I'm going to call out Mr. House. Did you tell me that you just finished harvesting? Yes. And I was telling you like it was too late. You need to get in there now and fill that out. What county are you in? Okay. Because okay, well that's good. We're done. Thanks for making that happen. I'm glad you showed up today. We saved you a year. And people don't think about that, but the South Carolina Forestry Commission has done studies about how much you don't realize how fast and how your stand is growing and how it's gaining value, but they say for every year that you wait to replant, you're losing about $100 an acre because of the time value of money. So if you have 50 acres times $100, planting next year is way better than planting the year after. You'd be making money. Well, once again, I want to thank all of our guests, particularly, driving a long way, missing the football. I hope they can watch it on their phone under the table or something, and I hope all your teams win. Any other questions? And I believe Josh is going to speak next. Thank you very much.
Well, hello everyone. I'm Josh Walden. I'm the Chief Operating Officer and an attorney here with the Center for Heirs Property Preservation. I've been charged with closing things out, and we just want to do that by thanking some folks without which this wouldn't be possible. First and foremost, I want to thank our keynote speakers. I think they've departed at this point. Miss Yvonne Knight Carter and Miss Brown and Mr. Joe Hamilton. We want to certainly thank Ann English with NRCS, who's standing against the wall there at the back of the room, and without whom certainly the center wouldn't be where we are today. without her partnership and her staff and her department's efforts. Thank you, and let's give them a round of applause. Also, we couldn't do what we do without our donors and sponsors, and a lot of them are in the room. So we certainly want to thank USDA and NRCS, Office of Advocacy and Outreach, Ag First Farm Credit Bank, Enviva, South Carolina Sustainable Forestry Initiative, and the Southern Sustainable Agriculture Research and Education. That is a mouthful. So thanks to them. And we're just going to give people a round of applause as we go, right? So thanks to them, certainly. Also want to thank our WCAs, the veteran WCAs, and the WCAs who graduated last night. Their contributions are immeasurable. Their contributions go well beyond just them showing up for workshops, well beyond. They are our focal point. They are the folks in the community that get us in front of the folks that need our services the most. So certainly thanks to the WCAs, new and old. I want to thank our landowners, the landowners that are currently working with the forestry component work, the landowners and the homeowners who are working with legal. Their success is our success. So thanks to all of them. And we certainly want to take an opportunity to thank our staff. I think I asked everyone to come in, but just for purposes, would everybody who's in the outreach department stand up real quickly for me? Are they still out there? We got some stragglers outside. They're working, of course, so. Is she? So you thought you were going to get out of it, didn't you? We came and got you. So all the folks who are standing, including Dorlisa there, this is the outreach department, and they've conducted all this, put all this together. Rajan, heading up the whole HUVA virtual component of the outreach. This is really like planning two events when you're talking on-site and virtual. Just want to give them a round of applause. This is really hard work, and sometimes it can be thankless, and I'm sure they're all going to exhale after today's over. So let's give them a round of applause. And our director of outreach, Alexa Stevens, she couldn't be here today, but I know she's watching. So we'll be seeing her soon. And your team pulled it off. Everything went perfectly and smoothly. So kudos to you. And obviously the staff the rest of the staff that are in the site. If everyone else who's a center employee could stand up, we've got folks from the legal department and we got folks from the forestry department. And these are the people that make the work happen on the ground. So, in summation, thank you for coming out. The fact that you're here, the those who participated virtually, the those who came out today and missed football games and missed other things, the idea of just being here, it's a lot of information to take in. So thank you again for coming. We certainly look forward to seeing you at next year's event. It'll probably won't be here. It'll be in a much bigger venue. So we look forward to seeing you then. And I've been asked to pass this along. Anyone who wants food or drink that's remaining in the Wells Fargo room, please help yourselves. Otherwise, that's going to go somewhere, and we'd rather you take it. So again, thank you for coming, and we will see you next year. Oh, survey? All right. Check that. We've got a survey that needs to be, that's going to be mailed out. Okay, there's a survey that's going to be emailed out by Rajan, and there's one available through HUVA. We'd really appreciate you completing those so we can get some quality feedback.